chemical balance of our brains will change, the chemical balance of our bodies will change, but it's not what causes depression. Experiences in early life can catch up with us later on and can lead to us becoming depressed. An experience of depression often precedes major life changes for people in a good direction, in a very good direction.
Now then, welcome to Reconnect, the podcast for people who want to heal and grow from life's tough times. I'm Joe Tudor, the founder of the Reconnect Club and a mental health keynote speaker. Today, I'm chatting with Dr Gillian Bowden MBE, a former NHS Clinical Psychologist and the lead author of the British Psychological Society's Understanding Depression report. We'll be talking about a more hopeful way to view depression, the importance of connection, and how we can find meaning and growth. Right, here's Gillian. What do we actually know about the causes of depression?
We actually know quite a lot about the causes of depression. There's been various research studies that have shown us a lot about the causes of depression. Would you like me to start talking a little bit about what some of those are? There was a hugely significant series of studies in America recently which confirmed a lot of what many people have known for a long time. Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, they call them, the ACEs studies, and we can probably give people more information on that if helpful. But experiences in early life can catch up with us later on and can lead to us becoming depressed. That's one thing, and you can have those anyway, and some people have adverse childhood experience and don't go on to experience depression, but it's a really important thing which can often be a feature. Then I think what happens as we get older, many of us have experiences where we might be subjected to difficult circumstances, financial difficulties, difficulties at work, difficulties with how we feel about ourselves, difficulties in employment, in training. All sorts of things can contribute. Or the problems of life, threat or loss. The two big things we came up in our report, experiences of threat, experiences of loss, people often, when they experience those things, they often go on to experience depression. So that in a kind of, it's always different. There's no one answer. Every person is different though.
What I've come to learn is that everyone's experiences is different. No two people have the same exact experience, which is why there's no like set in stone answers to why you feel this way.
Absolutely right.
But there's so much there just to discuss, because you mentioned work's a prime example. There's one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is employers obviously are getting involved heavily, and it's great, trying to improve their employees' mental health. But I look at my own issues or the own challenges that I faced at work. The work situation presented itself. My company, my bosses were amazing. But as is often the case in life, difficult situations arose, like client situations. I worked in sales, so a bad client call, for example, or someone complaining might not be my fault, but they had a bad day. And I find myself spiraling. But what I came to learn is that's not a reaction to the work event. That is something that's gone on.
Absolutely.
For me, it was almost like a fear of failure, but the failure kind of led to this deep spiral that I'm going to be alone forever, and it's this downward spiral.
Yeah. It often, a certain event can trigger off a whole load of different feelings and thoughts, and they can hook into something, some vulnerability that you may have developed earlier on, for instance. So it can hook into something that to some people would seem trivial or unimportant. To somebody else can send them spiraling down and down and down into a very negative place where they're feeling really awful about themselves.
Yeah, and you know what really upsets me? And I really going to try not to sound angry here, but my GP robbed me of hope. When she told me that I have a chemical imbalance in my brain, I thought that is me broken. I thought that's me done forever. I'm going to be depressed forever. I'm going to have to take a medication for the rest of my life. And that was it.
Different people are different. And some people, we're all different, as we keep saying, but some people find it a relief to be told there is something that we can do to fix them. And of course there is, but it's kind of longer term and it's complex. And I would argue probably medication may help people feel better, but it may not solve the underlying difficulties that the depression is really about.
Now you say it's kind of, the journey I went on was very similar. So it took an awful lot for me to go and see my GP. From what I've read, this is a really common thing in men in particular, that they leave it to the very last minute until things are really severe. It's, I have to get help now. So first of all, anyone listening to this, don't let it get to that. I've been through it. Go soon and get help soon, and hopefully we're going to discuss things as to how you can get help and what the different options are available to you. But exactly as you say happened to me. So I was so confused, and from my own research I found that when I asked people who are experiencing feelings of depression what would help them the most right now, they don't know. I was very much in that camp of just wanting some certainty. I think that's a really human thing to want, certainty. And when my GP told me that, I did go along with it, but I didn't believe it. You're right. So I left, and I kind of felt like a cop-out. It felt like 10 minutes with me. She's asked me no questions to get context for the rest of my life and what's going on. It just didn't seem to add up. But the thing that gave me that certainty and made me buy into the diagnosis and that medical view of my emotion was that everyone around me seemed to back it up. You know, people that cared about me kind of said, that's all right. You know, there's loads of people that have got this chemical imbalance. I've got one. I've had it. I take the medication. You should do it too. And I even went and emailed one of the UK's largest mental health charities. I emailed them and I called them. They never returned my calls. I left some pretty distressed voicemails saying, like, my GP's pushing me down this route and it doesn't seem to add up. I've still got the email that I sent in 2017 and said, look, everyone's pushing me towards this medication, this chemical imbalance for you, but I'm not sure. But then eventually, for a couple of weeks, I did get that certainty. I did. But then things just got worse and worse and worse.
I mean, with regard to the chemical imbalance, I mean, we could have other conversations about that as well. But when people are depressed, when they're in a position of stress, we get a release of cortisol for a start, which is linked to adrenaline and other things. And so the chemical balance of our brains will change. The chemical balance of our bodies will change, but it's not what causes the depression. So yes, you do get some chemical changes for sure in depression, but it's not what causes it.
My view, and this is very much my own opinion, I think people have intentionally, and that's a strong word to use, but intentionally blurred the lines between the cause and the effect. You need to, and if you're listening to this, I think it's really important that you differentiate that. I don't think there's anyone saying that your feelings, that they're horrible. It's the worst place I've ever been in my life, and I wouldn't for a minute downplay it. It had genuine physical.
Yeah, it has consequences, physical consequences. Absolutely, our emotional state has physical consequences for sure.
There were days I couldn't, not just get out of bed, walk down the stairs. I couldn't think. It was horrible. It had a physical impact. But what we're saying is, no one's doubting the effect. No one's doubting that what you felt was really horrible. It had physical impacts. What we're saying is question if it's the cause, because there's no evidence to show that the cause is a biological or medical issue.
Yeah. Because why are we getting those biological changes? It's a lot about our life circumstances, our life experiences. Yes, some of which may have happened early on. Some of what happens currently might trigger some feelings from earlier on as well. But the conditions of stress in which we're in our current society are absolutely huge. There's also kind of social comparison stuff around us all the time. It's all taking its toll on people.
And what I could be wrong here again, but my view is, if I was to get 2 suitcases out right now, put them on the table, and I said, Gillian, that suitcase, £1 million. That one, £1 million. The first one you get to keep, the second one you can give to a charity, your choice. You're going to be pretty happy, aren't you? Does that mean you've got a positive imbalance in your brain? I think the same goes for what we call depression. Something's happened that has led you to feel this way, and it's not always obvious. You know, I've
Yeah,
got
yeah,
real
yeah,
gripe
yeah,
with
yeah,
people that
sure.
act like it's always a conscious thought.
No, no,
It's not always obvious.
no,
But in
no,
that instance, you can't put all your emotions down to being an imbalance.
no, absolutely. No, the whole of life throws things at us all the time. So we get emotional consequences all the time. And depression is when something when things have been difficult for some time, you're feeling very low for some time. Then we call it depression.
I think
And incredibly low. And don't get me wrong, I'm not in any way minimizing people's experience of depression. It can be life threatening even, depression. It's a very serious it's a very serious place to be. It's a very serious condition. It deserves to be taken seriously. It deserves to be treated with great, great, great kindness and compassion.
But what you said there, I'm really glad you said it when you did, because I think there needs to be acknowledgement of what we're saying and what that impact that has on the language you use. So I'm not one of these like overly PC people, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just a normal bloke from the north of England.
Yeah.
But I get really annoyed when people talk about me as being mentally ill. Not but like, depression is a mental illness, you know. And I've met quite a few people that might work in different psychological therapy services. Some people that study psychology that are like really nice people that say, I care, I want to help people with mental illness. I just cringe because I'm like, well, no one's ever proven that I'm ill.
Yeah, yeah,
No
yeah.
one's ever, again, I come back to it, no one's ever done any scientific test on me.
Well, it
to show
depends.
me.
Laura, somebody called Laura Lee makes this point in our report. She said it depends on what you mean by the term illness. The problem is that we have a very narrow, the way it's spoken about in current parlance is we have a very narrow view of what we mean by illness. If we mean by illness a general unbalance, that life is not in a good place for us, then yes, you could say, but the expression mental illness, I think, is often used in a way to distinguish ourselves. You know, there's them, the mentally ill, and there's me, the absolutely fine. Of course, we're all human.
Yeah.
We're all in the same boat, actually, and we're all vulnerable to emotional distress.
That really upset me. And I've gone to a lot of peer support charities. And actually, there's an amazing one called Peer Talk that I'd love to give it a plug to now because they really helped me. I've met so many people. I speak openly. I feel absolutely no shame or stigma because, again, no one's ever proven that there's something wrong with me. So why would I feel shame or stigma for having something wrong with me?
There's nothing wrong with you. You're working stuff out.
Yeah.
As we all are.
Thank you. I think my friends will probably argue otherwise in many different categories, but mental health wise, yeah, no, I appreciate that. But when you go to a support group, and I'm sure you must have this throughout your whole career, when you actually listen to a person, you give them the space and you give them the confidence to speak. I don't think I've met someone yet that's been maybe given a label of being clinically depressed, where it hasn't actually been like, you can understand why you might feel that way. What you've gone through is really difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's giving voice and giving value to that. And that is really important, that people feel able to tell the story, able to realise themselves what's got them to this place. And ultimately, that can help them realise what they need to do to turn things around.
I just think it's so sad that I was given a label and no one heard me out. And if someone had listened to me and heard me out, which did in the future, I ended up getting to see an amazing therapist. So I'm not here bashing the NHS at all.
Yeah.
But it was in that instance, it could have saved me a lot of suffering. And that's why I'm so happy to be here with you today, to hope we can save others that suffering that might be in that situation of, well, what is it? What's going on? What's causing this?
Yeah, well, I'd really hope so too. But those were, as you were, I meant to come back to when you said it, but when you were talking about your GP in the 10 minutes, I thought that's probably all the GP has. So what can you do? And the GP, of course, wants to do something helpful. And so the easiest thing is to give you a very quick answer, because and it depends what resources they have as well.
I did quite a large survey, over 1,000 people, something I'm really proud of. And a massive thank you to everyone that helped out with that, because that was with no incentive. People were sharing painful experiences, but they did. One thing that I found is that you hear the news, depression seems to be related to men now, and I'm a bloke, and obviously it seems like blokes talk less. But reading the survey, there are a lot of issues that impact women too. And there was a
Absolutely.
lot around pregnancy, and you mentioned it in your report that I felt like actually we're being missed off.
Yeah.
Not from your report, sorry, but from the
Yeah.
message in society, because I don't want Reconnect Wellness Club to be a men-only club. I think
Okay.
it's
No,
really important that we
yeah.
all come together, we all understand each other's problems.
Yes. Yes. I mean, more women than men tend to receive the label of depression, which may be because it can be of all. There could be so many different reasons why that is. However, I think women and men, there are differences. Women, sadly, are more likely to experience abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse than men. Again, therefore, they're more likely to have experienced these experiences during childhood too, as well as in adulthood. So if we're connecting depression with difficult life experiences, which we most definitely are, women can have those experiences more frequently. On the other hand, men have they're maybe more subject to violent incidents potentially. That's not to say women aren't as well. We all have a whole mix of things. There are different things. Were you referring to we've got a bit in the report where we talk very briefly about postnatal depression as
Yeah.
well. Depression at different times in people's lives gets called different things. Obviously, there are a huge number of experiences that happen when a woman has a baby. She may have a difficult experience of giving birth. There may be all sorts of other pressures. There could be losses to do with the things she was previously involved in. Some women certainly will have to stop work for a little bit of time. There can be all sorts of things going on, but the label postnatal depression is given at that time. Typically, it doesn't mean it's a different sort of experience. It's still depression. It's probably about different things, and some of those reasons can be related to giving birth to a baby.
Okay, yeah, because that was one thing that I read this, and I'm like, wow, I've been a bit naive here, like, and it does sometimes again feel like it's becoming like a male issue. And I think I just feel really passionate that it's important that we all talk to each other. And we
Oh,
all
absolutely. Yeah.
society understand each other's problems.
Yeah. We're all human.
We
Yeah.
really are. So to wrap it up, but to sort of summarise, and again, I read the report last week, and I just think it was really powerful that this report, and I put a link to this, it is quite scientific, but even if you just read the results of the discussion, I think a lot of people will be able to understand it and get a lot from it. But the UCL paper that came out last week, where they basically concluded that there's no evidence that depression is caused by a chemical imbalance with serotonin, and they also looked at genetics as well.
Yeah.
So I think this leads, and I kind of started asking this question earlier, but it leads to the language we see. And what I really liked about your report is I think you referred to depression as something you experience and not something that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And that's yes. Depression is a human experience. Rather than something that you catch in the same way that you would catch a sort of virus or have a broken leg or something like that. Yes, we were quite careful and thoughtful and talked a lot with people who've had experiences of depression, including many of the authors of the report experienced depression. So we talked a lot about what felt right and the right way to frame it, because the language, how we frame things, the narrative around which we talk about things is extremely important in terms of meaning making, and it's important for individuals, it's important for society about how we see depression.
Yeah, and I thought it was almost initially. So if you listen to this, think, oh, these are two people being overly PC. Actually, think about the impact. If you say to someone you're experiencing depression, it's very different if you say to someone you have depression.
Yes,
Just
sure.
the difference of language there is minimal, but actually the meaning of it is completely different. So for people listening to this throughout the series, you might hear different people use different terms. I typically am happy using the term depression because it's the most common word.
Absolutely.
How people refer to it, but I refer to it as an experience, not as an illness. Some people don't like that. You might hear a lot of people talk about distress. So just to sort of set the tone for the podcast, you probably hear like experiences of depression and distress. And again, if you're hearing this and you think, well, actually, no, I have it. A lot of people believe that this is a medical disorder. We're not. It's up to you to decide how you relate to your own distress, your own depression.
Yeah, you were just talking about the language around things, and I was thinking if we go to the origin of some words, it can be really interesting, because the word, for instance, illness, as Laura picks up in our report, she said it's what we mean by illness. And even if we think about the origin of the word disease, originally dis-ease, it's a state of not being at ease with ourselves. I think the problem with words like illness, words like disease, they imply just a very medical way of looking at things rather than an emotional, psychological, social way of looking at things. But if we broadened these terms to be much more holistic, then I think we'd have a better way of looking at the problems of dis-ease in society in general. Certainly emotional, certainly anything that gets labelled as a mental health difficulty.
And there's another one. Depressed means to push something down.
Yeah.
So
well,
and again, I put myself back in that situation where I'm sat in my GP's chair and she's told me I have clinical depression. The word she uses means I've pushed something down. And that is exactly what I had done.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm going off what the scientists say. I didn't have an illness. There wasn't something that was wrong with my brain. I just pushed some really difficult life experiences down.
Absolutely. And the link with depression and oppression, I think, is huge as well.
And actually, one interesting thing, and I'm not here to tell my own story. That's kind of the last thing I actually really want to do. But people often talk about like a trigger event. And this is another thing as well that I think is worth acknowledging. So for me, it was a breakup. The breakup did not cause my experience of depression. I look at it now and think, actually, the relationship kind of was the glue that held me together for quite a while. It wallpapered over some cracks, and then all of a sudden, there's this big life event. Someone that's there one day is gone the next day. And it all just started to spiral out of control. The issues actually that I found that I had to deal with had been going on for most of my life.
Yeah.
I just never actually noticed them, and I'd always hid them from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very common experience. But certainly the loss of a significant relationship is often precedes an experience of depression for sure. And there's also sadness and loss as well about that. But certainly it can hook into a variety of unresolved issues from earlier.
And we mentioned this before, that when I've gone to support groups and I've met people, and now I talk more openly and people talk to me and I listen to them. And that's it. Listen to people. Like, if you listen to them and they'll tell you the story, it's often very similar. There is that experience of sadness, of grief, of bereavement, of breakup, of difficult childhood, of real, genuine, difficult life situations that people have to overcome.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I don't want this to come across as being negative, because actually, let's just pause and step out for a minute, because what I found when I first came across this, there's hope. And if there's one thing you take away from this podcast, there is hope.
Absolutely.
Until someone can put a needle in your arm and take your blood or scan your brain or even do your spinal fluid, that'd be pretty horrible, but measure your spine. But until someone can do that, and I don't think they ever will be able to, again, my own opinion, but until someone can objectively do that, then there's hope for you.
If you give people time and space, what you come to realise, and as I say, I've been privileged working with people who've been working through their experience, is that very often what has happened for a reason. It has happened for a reason so that they can address something and deal with something and make different choices, maybe. So an experience of depression often precedes major life changes for people in a good direction, in a very good direction.
The experiences I had of depression have led to some of the most amazing, difficult life choices. I ended up leaving. I was working in London in a job with amazing people, but it wasn't the right thing for me, and I was hiding from that. I didn't think about it. I ended up leaving. I got a one-way flight to India. I traveled the world. I started to do different things, and it changed my life forever.
Brilliant.
But my doctor initially robbed that from me. I learned to challenge it, and I met an amazing therapist who helped me. And I read Johan Hari's book, Lost Connections.
Yeah, fantastic.
And I started to see that actually what my doctor has said isn't the case, and there is hope. So if you're listening to this again and you're a bit confused and you've been given a label and you think, oh, actually there's just something wrong with me, my own experience is that it can be hard, it's difficult, it's not easy, but often there's a message in there.
Absolutely. I would quite agree. But we're quite avoidant. As you know, who wouldn't? You experience something unpleasant, the most natural thing in the world is to want to avoid it. However, and James Davis, I know, makes the distinction between adaptive, productive suffering rather, and unproductive suffering. And I think sometimes going to meet something with support, I'm not saying we should do this alone at all, but with the right support, the right help, being safe, we can look at difficult issues and they can help us get to a better place, which is the amazing thing about depression.
Do you know what I found amazing? When I travelled the world, I was really interested to see how different countries, different societies, different people handle what we call depression.
Yeah.
And I've realised that what we call depression, a lot of countries just call suffering.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've always had a complicated relationship with suffering, though. That, you know, I mean, I think in different times of history, people with mental health difficulties, people who are clearly suffering in all sorts of ways, you know, we've kind of locked people up. We've found all sorts of ways of trying to restrain people from expressing themselves. And of late, we've medicated people. Which is not to say that people wouldn't people have used alcohol as ways of dampening things down and people will continue to do so. But it's kind of recent that we've medicalised it as much as we have. Yeah, and I think those are very good questions. But I think individually we struggle with facing difficult things. Of course, who wouldn't? But as a society, we struggle with it too.
So I mentioned my research. So over 1,000 people completed it. And I asked people an open question. The question was simply, what caused your depression? It was an open box. People could type as much as they wanted in there and read every single one of them. Mm-hmm. It took 3 months, and it was heartbreaking to read some of the things. I thought the most commonly cited issue would be chemical imbalances or genetics, and it wasn't. Less than 8% of people believe their depression was caused by something like chemical imbalances, by genetics, or just by saying they had a disorder. 92%, 92.5% of people listed a completely natural life event.
Yeah.
The most commonly cited issue was difficult experiences in childhood. Why is our childhood experience so important for our mental health?
Well, I guess our childhood experience creates the culture and the lens through which we see the world. Often, it'll go on to. I mean, there's so many important reasons. I think that the childhood we have informs how secure we feel. People talk about in terms of attachments, insecure attachments or stable attachments, and of course, you know, these things are never they're never totally either or, really. But some people are lucky enough to be blessed with a very stable, loving background. Others have more complicated experiences when their parents may have been dealing with all sorts of complicated issues and been unable to give a child a stable background. So that's a child who's born feeling under threat, feeling unsafe, is going to take that with them into adulthood, for sure. Plus, trauma, when it's unsupported, goes on to develop into all sorts of other complications because we'll be constantly on guard, for instance. Yes, the threats, that will alter the chemistry of our bodies. So it's complicated. Yeah.
What can we do to feel better?
Well, the first thing you need to do, I guess, is acknowledge there's a difficulty. That's the first thing I think we need to do. The second thing is to connect with somebody, because depression is not something you should suffer with alone, I think. That once people know you're in trouble, you're asking for help. It's never wrong to ask for help. it's always a good thing, and it's a good thing to connect with people, and most people are delighted to do whatever they can. As you say, that people will probably rush in with lots and lots of things, and what you mainly need is probably somebody to just sit down and be with you and be able to listen to you and hear what you're saying.
And if I can cut in there,
Yeah.
there's an amazing website called the Hub of Hope.
Great.
I think it's hubofhope.com, but I'll put a link in the comments, and I'll put a link on our website, because the Hub of Hope, you can go in and type your postcode in, and it will tell you all of the initiatives that are in your area.
Fabulous.
So what you said there about not being alone and connecting, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And I think this is, we mentioned about everyone experiences feelings of depression, but it's often blokes that don't go and get help. There's, there are men-only things if you want to, but I mentioned peer talk, which is one that I love. Go on Hub of Hope. It might feel really hard for you to go, but I'm just a normal person. I went and it's helped me so much. So if you sat listening to this and you're thinking, sounds great, Gillian, but I haven't got any friends.
Yeah.
Hub
There's
of
places
Hope.
you can reach.
You'll find
fantastic.
some.
Well
Hub of
done.
Hope.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
Yeah.
You were
No,
gonna
you
say.
didn't at all. And I hear Men's Shed is good as well. There's all sorts of different things, I'm sure. Good, but great if you're putting the resources on. Basic physical self-care, because when we're depressed, we kind of can tell ourselves we're not worth taking care of, which of course nothing is further from the truth. It's really important to nurture and care for yourself. So, get it, physical things like eating as well as you can is really important. Sleep's one of the first things that often goes, and I think that is because people are chasing around, sometimes avoiding things. It can just be really, really hard to sleep, but find ways you can to kind of self-soothe in whatever way you can. There's some really good kind of, but as I say, don't expect too much too soon. Just try it a little bit. Don't set yourself impossible tasks, even just 10 minutes doing something. And you know that there are different self-help things you can follow. Then I'd say it depends. It's so much depends on the person. You kind of need to work to find out what things you might enjoy doing, in what ways you might be able to connect well with people. Walking groups, different things like that you can do. So the power of community is really important. Some people do find, obviously, therapies helpful as well. But by the way, just the physical things like taking up running or taking up walking, those can help you feel much, much better, and good diet. Then I would say if you can manage to get some sort of therapies, psychological therapies can be really helpful. It doesn't have to be that. Some way of understanding and meaning making would be really good. For clinical psychologists and other mental health professionals, work with people on developing what we call is a formulation, which is a way of understanding what's got you to this place and what steps you might take to kind of reconnect in a helpful way. So those are more for people seeking mental health services, which maybe people will do. I would talk to your GP, even though you may only get a short amount of time. But as you say, there's different options. It's not just... There's so many different options.
One thing I found, I think a couple of things, I could chew everyone's ear off all day long about sleep. I think sleep is one of nature's antidepressants.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much. If I could share my one top tip, I think seems to be every neuroscientist and every sleep professional's top tip: wake up at the same time every day and get natural light if you can. It is amazing how that sets your body's rhythm.
Yeah.
And that does seem, and it probably change over the years, but that seems like the general consensus right now. Diet, food, exercise. One thing I find is that we live in this world that doesn't acknowledge the issues that we've discussed about enough. So people talk about, be grateful, write in your journal, go for a run. Yeah, this is good for your mental health. My view is that everyone should have a toolkit. Everyone's toolkit will be different. You've got to do the things that work for you. Going for a run, probably not going to solve all your problems, but it might make you feel better. And I think that's what I view an antidepressant as. I don't think anyone argues that people seem to have moved away from the fact that antidepressants don't correct a chemical imbalance. They might help some people, but they're not solving the issue. I think it's the same for running. It's not going to solve all your issues, but it might make you feel better in that moment.
Yeah.
Same with sleep, the same with all the things you mentioned. Don't see it as a cure to an illness. See it as something that might help give you a boost.
Yeah.
So then you can go on and actually, and again, everyone's toolkit's different, but it helps you go on to feel better.
And all the ways you can nurture yourself. think of what is nurturing for you and do it.
What can you do to help someone?
Remain a good friend and don't be afraid to check up on somebody, for sure, because some people can think, you should give people a wide berth. People used to do that a lot when people were bereft, when people had died. I would avoid them. But, it's always worth just making the contact and saying, hi, how are you doing? And then being prepared to listen and be with, and not necessarily to think you can fix it, but just stay a good friend. Stay a good friend, for sure. And, if the person might want to go out for a walk or whatever, or just, pop round for a cup of tea, just stay a good friend, is what I would say. Stay a good friend.
It's simple, isn't it? Listen. Stay a good friend. Listen. Give them a space to talk. Make them feel okay. Make them feel safe. It's... that's honestly, that's sometimes all I want. I just want to feel like people have listened and understood.
Yeah.
I think just to wrap up, I'm really concerned that people may be listening to this that have almost formed part of their identity or how they've explained their experience of being a medical problem, a chemical imbalance, or a mental illness. And I'm not saying, I think it's people both when I say we're not saying that if that helps you, roll with it. In my eye, we're not telling you how to live your life.
Yeah.
You've helped me so much, and I think your report is probably the best thing I've read that relates to my experience. So thank you.
No, well, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, Joe. A real pleasure to have this conversation with you as well as our other ones. So thank you very much. It's great.
And I'll put a link in the comment section and YouTube and on our website for how people can find the report.
Right.
It's a brilliant report. Definitely read it. And even if you're here because you're supporting a friend or a loved one or a family member, it will help you so much.
Yeah. There's sections in it for that. I do hope it's helpful for people. It was a journey writing it, but so many people contributed and did such a good job. So great. And I'm glad it's helping. I hope it continues to do so.
Well, you've stayed until the end, so you're basically part of our community now, and I need your help. I've paid for the whole of season 1 myself, and I'm running on fumes now. I'm trying to raise 1,200 quid to cover the cost of season 2. Every penny will go towards creating episodes that help people who are feeling lost and alone. If you've found this episode helpful and you're able to chip in, then please do help us to help others. You can donate towards season 2 by heading to my Ko-fi page, which you can find in the show notes. You'll also find in the show notes a link to Gillian's British Psychological Society Understanding Depression report, amongst some other resources. Also, if you're in London and you want to join our Reconnect waiting list, go to reconnect.club. Or if you'd like me to speak at your organisation, it's joetudor.com. Thank you for helping us to grow the Reconnect community. Until next time, see ya.